It says on air.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Movies Galore, where we just talk about movies. So tonight, I'm going to be attempting to lead the discussion. We're going to be talking about Michael Dougherty's Krampus from a couple of years ago and how awesome it is. And this movie kind of has its genesis in... I watched the commentary for it, and I think one of my favorite lines was... I think it was from Mike. He called up the producer and he was like, "Hey, you want to do a Krampus movie?" And the reply was, "What the fuck is a Krampus?" So, off to a great start. So, well, I'm Dustin, and, well, who are all you people? Start with Andrew.
Willie?
Brandon.
Okay. Hey. Yeah, I'm Andrew. I live in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And, yeah. About it. Who's next?
My name's Celeste. I will tell you more about myself at the end.
I'm Red Raven.
Go ahead.
Okay, there are far too many people for this to actually work.
I say I'm Michelle Yeager. We need to go a little bit better at an order for this.
Or Dustin, you have to prompt who to talk.
Yeah. You're in charge here.
It's like, all right, well, hell with this, as I throw away my script. All right, so who hasn't talked yet? So, well, we have a new guest, Red Raven, so why don't you tell us your first impressions of the movie, like when you first saw it, also maybe who you are a little bit, too.
I'm Red Raven, and I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty good. Up until like 2 years ago, I didn't even know who Krampus was. I hadn't even heard of, the folklore or what he was, the character. So it was good to like actually see the movie and like, what he's known for and that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. How about we try going down the line? So, Andrew, you're the first in the little series of pictures down here. So, how about you tell us about your first encounter with the Krampus?
Oh, yeah. So, I was really skeptical at first because I remember watching this, like, super low-budget movie that I remember went by the name of Krampus, and I gave it all of maybe 15 minutes before I just noped out.
See, Dave? See Septum Sins? I told you we'd address those.
Yeah. And so I'd seen those 15 minutes before this, and I'm like, okay, well, sometimes we do low-budget films here. Nope. It was amazing. I would say as far as Christmas movies, this is right up there with Gremlins and Die Hard.
Bam. Strong endorsement. All right, Dane, you're up next.
So yeah, this was the first time I'd seen the film for this discussion, but I knew about the Krampus before this movie came out. So I was probably in the extreme minority, and I really did enjoy this film a lot. I was a little... Well, here's the thing. Like, I feel like I liked the movie for what it was, like what was on the screen. I feel like there could have been a version of this that was a lot. I mean, I thought it was very intense for a PG-13 movie. I feel like it could have been a lot more intense and a lot gorier and a lot like much more overtly scary. Even though the elves and everything in the actual creatures were really, really scary, at least to me. I do feel like there's a version of this in my head that was less horror comedy. It was more like a really, really scary film, which, again, there's a lot of this movie that is actually quite scary. And then, because I knew about the Krampus before the movie, this, to me, felt a little bit more like Evil Santa and less like a Krampus as he exists in his own right. Because as far as I know, in the Krampus legends that I've read about, the Krampus doesn't have his own workshop and like demented toys and stuff. I think it's just a beast that that kills and eats evil bad children. And I think that's kind of it. I think he's got a sack that he keeps them in, but that's about it. Like he doesn't. But again, I know that they were banking on the fact that people don't know what a Krampus is, so they're just like, evil Santa, go. So I mean, that was good, and again, there's no hard and fast rules to any of this stuff. I just, to me, it felt a little bit more like evil Santa and less like just pure Krampus, if that makes sense.
Well, in the commentary, they did mention that they were kind of aiming for some of that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So, all right, so Dave, your turn. When did you first see the Krampus? Dave?
Dave.
Oh,
Stop screaming around, Dave.
hello. A couple of years ago, I saw the film. I didn't see it in the theaters, and enjoyed this film, especially the beginning part. Exact way that I always imagine.
That was a great intro to the story. Well, I don't know if
it was
should be
definitely a great intro. I mean, even the little sad girl that was sitting on Santa's lap,
just like fucking crying,
because her mom was trying to get her to smile.
Well, it did kind of serve as a little bit of a. Oh, what that?
Ultimately, I think this was kind of just meant for just a fun adaptation of that like a evil Santa type, because this guy even had his own elves. He had toys attacking. One kind of looked like a Puppet Master toy.
Well, they did say that they were shooting for more of a fantasy movie, rather than like per se a pure horror movie. The way they described it in the commentary was that they wanted to focus it as a Christmas movie that was suddenly invaded by a horror movie, and they really nailed that. So, Katie Cadaver, what'd you think?
I saw the movie not in the theaters, but maybe a year or two ago. I don't know. So fairly recently. If it's a horror movie made past like 1997, I'm kind of skeptical to going in. But it actually was entertaining to me. And I noticed a parallel that was very interesting. I don't know if any of you have seen the Polar Express, but I have a 10-year-old, so I've seen the Polar Express lots of times. And this basically reminded me of the horror version of the Polar Express. Like, they don't go on a train ride, but it's the same like plot structure where the kid stops believing in Santa, and then suddenly, something happens to try to make him whatever, feel something. In Polar Express, it's to try to convince him to, believe in Santa again through his adventure to the North Pole. And here it's, his adventure of his family getting eaten by Krampus or whatever. But at the end, they both get the bell and they both wake up and it's all just a dream. But then this movie has that really great twist at the end, which I enjoyed, but it just totally reminded me of a more scary version of the Polar Express.
Okay.
Can I interject really quickly?
Sure.
I just need to get a joke out of my system. So at the end, when he pulls out the bell, you can see all of their polar expressions.
Oh, fuck you, Andrew.
Oh my.
Anyway, Michelle, it's your turn.
Well, the Krampus comes derived from the German word Krampen, which means the claw. So they had the claws, right? And they had the goat part, right? Because it's half goat, half demon. And if you go by the lore of Krampus, which I like the Krampus movie, I like this version of it. I do prefer a movie with a little bit more scare and gore to it, but this was something you could actually show your kids.
That was what they had in mind, exactly.
If you wanted to
I kind of
traumatize
like
them.
that. Yeah, like you get some little bit of early traumatizing in without having it being too bad,
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously not for young children, but for a little bit older kids, preteens, that it's a little bit more family. That you could actually watch it with your kids.
My 4-year-old would watch it.
See, my child, I know she would have loved it when she was younger. I mean, obviously, she's seen it now. She's older, but if you go by that, if you look at the lore, they actually did follow it. Other than I disagree a little bit with the casting by the old lady because she didn't seem very German, and it didn't sound very German. And so,
what language was she speaking?
I don't know. I sounded more Russian to me, and he seemed awful young to be her son.
Supposed to be speaking something like
Generation missing in there.
Well, in the I had the subtitles on, and it just said "speaks in German," which close enough. And
It was German. It was German.
Well, I'm German, so it didn't sound German to me at all.
I could understand it without the subtitles.
My herpetology professor is from Germany, and she actually looks kind of. She still has color in her hair, but she looks a lot like like Omi did. So I bought Omi as German.
They've got this woman who's supposed to be look close to 90 years old. I'm sorry, when it should have been someone probably more around the 60 age range, and so I thought that it was just she looked too old for the part.
You look 90.
Though I enjoyed the animation.
Makes a point with that she looked too young instead of what she should have been.
Well, speaking of
they should have had somebody a little bit younger play the part. That's.
I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. I mean, it worked for me, but other people are more observant, so that could be a little bit of a hole in.
It was almost like to me there was like a generation gap, but where that aunt filled in, that she should have been probably around the same age to me. In appearance.
Well, the aunt
much older.
Not have a child.
I think the aunt was more of a. The aunt was her own thing. Like a lot of what they did was they kind of tried to like set up like archetypal characters and then have them like behave sort of differently, so that the story was happening, to the typical like Christmas movie characters. You have like the annoying aunt, you have like the douchebag relative.
I thought it should have been, instead of his mom, it should have been his grandmother. I mean, that's to me, that's just the only thing I would have done differently. If you kept it the same way, then you need to either change the character to someone younger or just change it to his grandmother instead of his mother, because then it would have fit a little bit better.
Okay.
Did anyone notice how the son was the guy from Step Brothers?
Yes, and I love him.
Kind of displaced.
I don't remember a whole.
Adam Scott, you mean?
Yeah, he was.
Dustin, you have to get to me soon. I have so much to say about this movie.
Well, I'm trying, but we keep getting stop.
Ah!
I blame somebody. I don't know.
I blame you.
Dane. I blame Dane, I guess. I don't know.
I
just picked a name. Anyway, so Septim, because you're next in the list. Sorry.
Ah!
Well, actually, I also have a lot to say about this particular.
No.
But,
okay.
There's two of us here now.
All right. How about? I got it. Here's what we'll do. Okay, I don't have a die. Well, since Celeste is kind of begging, I'll let Celeste go, and then we'll get back to you because I know you're gonna. Is that okay with you, Septim?
That works, and then my wife after that.
Oh, okay, great. Because you'll be a twofer. There we go. All right, Celeste, fire away.
Yay. Okay, so I have things I liked about the movie and things I didn't like, and I'm only going to say the things I liked right now, because the things I didn't like, I think we can discuss later after everyone has a chance to talk. But this was the first time I saw this movie. I'd always intended to watch it, and I hadn't, so I was really excited to watch it. And I did not grow up knowing about Krampus, but my family's German, so we knew about Knecht Ruprecht. And I guess it's the same thing.
Like Krampusnacht or something.
Yeah, Knecht Ruprecht is their figure in that they use. They say that in Germany as the person that goes around and kidnaps bad children. So I think it's all the same thing. It's just a different name. So I was kind of familiar with that. So the things I liked about it were that it's like really felt like a Christmas movie. It had that like really cheesy, schmaltzy,
Yep.
Christmas movie feel to it instead of just a straight horror film. And I think you pointed out the characters were really fun caricatures, and the actors were good for their parts. So they were very archetypal characters. So those were all the things I liked about this movie.
One thing they said was that they wanted people that like were jerks, but that you didn't want to hate. Like they didn't want you to be rooting for anyone to really die. So that was kind of intentional. I'll continue.
Right. All right. So I'll get to the stuff I didn't like after everyone has a chance to talk.
Okay.
Were you bugged at all by the fact that the grandma, just as far as the German thing, were you bugged at all that she was saying when she was speaking English randomly? Were you bugged at all that she was saying Santa instead of Sinterklaas?
No, my mom is German, and she always said Santa when she spoke in English. I was a little weirded out that she was Omi, not Oma, because I always had an Oma, but she was definitely speaking German because I watched it. I didn't read the subtitles. I just listened to her talk, and I could understand it all. And I don't really know any other languages besides German, so it would have had to be German.
Wunderslausch or whatever. Yeah. Somebody got that.
No.
Somebody got that and enjoyed it. Well, mine should be quick, and then we'll address both of you guys. So I actually had known about Krampus for a while. He was in like a Venture Brothers short from a million years ago. Like, I don't remember what the setup is, but he just like shows up at like a Christmas party and starts like whipping Dr. Venture, and it's like, what kind of kinky Christmas spirit is this? So I knew about Krampus before, and this movie had a lot of buzz to it when it came out in 2015, and I finally saw it last year during. Well, let's just say last year I had a Christmas about as bad as the one that Max has in this movie. Well, I think it would have been improved by murderous clown toys, but it was pretty great. I was really happy to see it, and well, I have my own notes, but we'll address them as we can use. So, your turn, Septum Sins.
Oh, Jesus. You go first, baby.
Okay, well, I have an interesting experience for that because I first experienced something similar to that when I watched Nutcracker Fantasy, and if anybody remembers seeing that, though it's not Krampus, there was a guy called...
I know that one.
And that was one of the creepiest things for me as a child. And then I got followed up by that in the early 90s watching...
The Rat King?
Yes, yeah.
On meeting with the stripper at the strip club. To be honest, today was a really bad day for me and Mr. J.
What?
What?
What? Wow.
Whose fiance is at a strip club?
I know.
What did I just hear?
So, in the early 90s, I actually got introduced to the first full Krampus film, Der Krampus, which is a German film. It was in the 80s. And that also scared me half to death when I was younger, but I was a scaredy cat when I was a kid and early teen. And then finally in 2013, I was actually looking up stuff, and I found the original Krampus, the Krampus short, The Night of the Krampus, which is kind of cheesy, but my kind of cheesy. So then in 2016, because I was too cheap to buy movie tickets, I got Krampus on Blu-ray at a Black Friday sale and finally got to see it. And I was actually quite impressed by the quality of it. Out of all the ones I've seen, and I've seen pretty much every Krampus movie that's been released, including Mother Krampus, which came out recently. This one to me was probably the best done and most entertaining all the way through. Very different from how he's depicted in a lot of the other ones, because he's more like a demon with horns in a lot of the other ones. And I think Night of the Krampus, he was actually being summoned and controlled by a demon worshiper. But in this one, I actually thought was really good. Kind of reminded me a little bit about the movie The Mist. That was based off of Stephen King, where you had these things, and even a slightly comedic bent when you got to the little gingerbread men jumping up around and
that was definitely intentional too. Yeah, they talked about a lot about how they really wanted it to be like not necessarily a pure horror movie, but more again fantasy focused and like something that you could share with kids, because the Krampus story is really a kid's story, like in the same way like Santa is a kid's story. You know, it's like if you're bad, Krampus will come get you, or whatever it actually is. And so they really tried to keep that kind of balance. Like they talked about Gremlins a lot, like they were really heavily influenced by that kind of movie, like from the 80s, like the Amblin like kids movies. And so that's exactly what they were going for. Like they weren't trying to like murder a whole ton of people.
Which is anybody else besides me just sick of Spielberg ripoffs, whether it's films he directed or produced, like he produced Gremlins. But like, is anybody else besides me just getting really sick of that?
Yeah. Which ones?
I sure am.
I felt like the new It movie was almost Spielberg-esque, and I was kind of tired of it.
But it was still a good movie.
No, it was still very good, but it
You know,
felt...
I mean, only in the sense that it's in the 80s, but I mean, Stephen King's book, you know, preceded a lot of the, at least the implementation in the cultural consciousness of the Spielberg cliche, such that people could emulate it later. Obviously, E.T. came out. Well, E.T. came out.
Rip off Stephen King, then.
Yeah.
Well, but, think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get what I mean. It's like I personally get really tired of the fact that that's the standard that people aspire to now, instead of trying to do their own thing.
It is?
It seems like it, yeah. I mean, everywhere you look, it seems like people are really trying to be Spielberg, and I can tell you as a filmmaker, I don't want to be Spielberg. I want to be me. You know,
some people might start out that way, but they would evolve into their own style as they go on. Like I think everybody borrows from other things when they first start out.
Yeah, everybody borrows, but it's like it feels like
I can't actually think of anything.
Well, it feels like people are stuck. At least to me, it feels like they're really stuck in that kind of mold, and I feel like they need to break out of it. That's a whole other topic, though.
Well, at the same time, in the last 5 years, I feel like Spielberg has kind of fallen off his pedestal a little bit.
He himself has, yeah, but
Spielberg's been bad since like the late 90s.
Well, so anyway. Yeah. I mean, but look at Tarantino. Tarantino has made his entire thing about taking other people's stuff and making it his own.
Yeah, like that guitar.
Yeah, he's kind of his own.
What?
But everything that Tarantino's done has been borrowed in some way from something else. He himself has even said that. Basically, he takes what he's got, and then he takes that and he makes it into something new.
Yeah, if anybody who thinks Tarantino is original is an idiot. Which is, again, not to say that his stuff is bad. It's very good. But just, again, people like to treat it like it's brand new. No one's ever done it before. Pfft, yeah, right. He gets it from everywhere. You know, all the Grindhouse classics and all that. Anyway, back to this movie.
Just one more person.
Sure.
You're first.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You sure?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
One of the things that I didn't like about the film that I didn't like about the film was the mother was kind of displaced. Myself she was in. She seemed like she was older than she probably should have been.
I think maybe
compared to the husband.
I think maybe to some extent
I know is in Ghosted as we speak, but
I think they were trying to play her as like somebody who was like always like constantly stressed out. So she looked fine to me, in that, well, she just looked tired, and like she made some comments about it's like, you know, I've been working nonstop for the Christmas, so I think she probably just
go ahead.
Can you guys hear me? What's going on?
We can hear you. What's up?
Oh, no, I was trying to make a point and I was getting shouted over. Where were we?
I could, well, honestly, is I don't really relate to a lot of characters in fiction. I have to say that I actually could relate, not so much to the kid himself, because he doesn't really have a character, really. I could relate to his experience in the sense that he wants to, well, he wants to preserve the magic of Christmas, and yet the adult world just keeps ruining it. And I can
Crashing
really,
down on it.
well, I can really relate to that because I have to say, in my adult life, I get less and less enchanted with Christmas every year. And I really, really hate that because I used to absolutely love Christmas. And it just, to me, as I get older, it feels like a burden instead of a joy. And I feel really bad about that. So I could definitely relate to that kid's struggle. And I can actually relate to the mom a little bit as far as like the stress of the relatives who just drive you up the wall.
What is that?
So I could relate to those two characters in those capacities.
That was one of my big problems
Fully
with the
agreed.
movie, that the disillusionment with Christmas seemed like a natural thing that children go through. So the punishment for that disillusionment seemed way overboard. Like, didn't seem like right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I can.
the
I can
idea
see
was
that, although
that-
it is kind of a fairy tale. He's kind of using fairy tale logic in that sense, though.
Exactly,
Yes,
it's a dark fairy tale.
Yeah, the punishments of those things are always really overboard relative to what we modern people would say is appropriate.
Did anybody see that
Plus,
nod?
their premise too was that you had to be like the last. It had to be like nobody in town like feels that anymore. That was explained like in the story that Omi told. So it could have just been that like he was the last person who like still believed in the spirit of it, and then when that happened, there's nobody left in town who has the right mentality, and then Krampus shows up. So
Well, the power went out.
Neat. You okay?
Yeah, the power did go out.
And then they let that Christmas tree went up in flames.
Okay.
Did
It did.
anybody else catch that sort of homage to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation where the doorbell rings?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Andrew brought that up earlier in the planning stages. Like there were a lot of parallels to National Lampoon, like in like how like the two families were kind of set up. It's like, oh, you have the annoying like relatives show up, like especially in that dinner scene. Like that dinner scene was painful.
Or even like the beginning of Home Alone.
Exactly, and that gets again to like they had so many Christmas movie tropes. But again, with their premise of a family Christmas movie invaded by a horror movie, like a lot of it was actually really brilliant when you think about it. In terms of what they were trying to do.
Did anyone notice right after he had the fight, brother and sister were wearing like a sweater root, and he was different clothes, not pajamas but clothes.
No, I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch that. I caught a lot of random things. Like, so in the commentary they mentioned that Seth Green and Justin Roiland were doing voices for the Gingerbread Men. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we have like Rick and Morty stuff hidden in here too." And,
yeah, that was in the the credits.
Yeah, in Max's room, there's a wanted poster for Rick on the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's
Robot Chicken stuff too.
And there's the Jaeger from Pacific Rim in there.
Yeah, he has a figure on his desk.
Yep.
All right, there's something I need to bitch about real quick.
Oh, one of the snow globes had the house from Psycho in it too. That's why Psycho was in the credits.
Oh, I was wondering. I couldn't figure out anything from Psycho.
Go ahead, Celeste.
Okay,
Go ahead.
My biggest complaint when I watched this movie, and I was like, that would never happen, well, this is one of my two biggest complaints. Beth, they left her outside. No parent would just go to sleep at night after leaving their kid outside in a blizzard and not knowing what happened to him. I'm sorry, but no parent would do that.
In frostbite weather.
Yeah, they were like, oh, we'll look in the morning when things are, no, that's just not realistic. Like, I have a kid, I would not rest until I found my kid and he was home in his bed or I died trying.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, true.
They did come close to dying trying.
Yeah, but I would have actually died trying.
Actually, there were some characters I really didn't like at the beginning, but really liked.
Like the Boondocks, or died trying.
I actually didn't mind the aunt towards the end. There was a part where she was like kicking butt at the end, right before she got hers, and I was like, okay, go on.
That actually leads to my other biggest complaint in the movie.
She has the best line. I'll see you in hell, drag off my elves.
So many of the
what about the political interjection when the stuff was going?
Let's let Celeste finish her point.
Go ahead.
Okay, just really quickly, I have to say my biggest complaint in the movie is that so many of the characters, they were these archetypal characters, but they had achieved so much growth over the course of the movie. They stepped outside of it. They saw different perspectives. They appreciated each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they really banded together. And in the end, it was kind of meaningless, and they learned nothing because it wasn't real. And so this character growth that they achieved, they didn't remember. They didn't.
It was all real. They remembered. Like, look at their faces when they see the belt. They remembered everything.
Even the dog. That memory trigger that everyone had when it kind of panned around. I thought that kind of like symbolized that they all remembered.
They explicitly explained that in the commentary too. That's what happened.
But I think all the growth they achieved, as in this aspect, was sort of undone.
Assuming they're even still alive.
Think about the.
Yeah, that was something I wondered. Were they that? So I was trying to figure this out. Were they in their homes as it existed, but they were just being watched by the Krampus, or did he?
I think they're in the snow globe.
That's what I thought. I thought he like captured them and is like keeping.
They're all dead. They're in his snow globe. That's the way I kind of took it.
Well,
and they have perpetual Christmas to like make it up to each other because
they wanted
to have them killed.
That's what they wanted people to think. They said so. It's either this is the next day, and he did what he had to do. Like he was willing to sacrifice himself, and that's what the spirit of the holiday is, and that's what Krampus wanted. So they were let go, but they're being watched. Versus they all died, and now they're in snow globe hell. And Michael Dougherty was very clear. It's like, we're not telling you guys, but enjoy.
Yeah, I kind of interpreted it as he had stolen their existence and was keeping it in his collection for all the other, essentially souls that he had claimed.
And it did seem pretty shaken at the end.
Oh, God damn it.
Very, very briefly, I have to say, high praise to everyone involved in the film for the CGI really only on the gingerbread men, but practical effects everywhere else. Really, really creepy masks, really great character designs, really scary toys.
They worked very hard on all that.
Yeah, the elves were really scary. I love that they were hidden in shadow largely. And the Krampus himself, even though I wasn't really happy with the fact that it was basically evil Santa and not really the Krampus as I think of him, I did like the way he looked, and he was a very scary presence. And I liked his roar. It was really scary.
I got something special for you on that. So the few times you get kind of you only really get like a faint look at Krampus. In the commentary, they explained that what Krampus is wearing, like the face that you see, that's a mask.
Oh.
So nobody knows what Krampus really looks like when they have those close-ups of him, and you can see the clearly like very different eyes. Like he's wearing a Santa mask.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I wondered why his mouth was just gaping open, and I wasn't sure if that was just to make it look creepy or what.
I don't know. Maybe he's pulling like a Leatherface kind of deal. Yeah. Like maybe Santa.
They explained that. They were like, he didn't kill Santa, and that's his face. Like Krampus existed before Santa, and when Santa comes out, like, he's jealous of Santa, so he tries to look like Santa.
Oh,
That makes sense. Okay.
yeah,
And
I can
so-
roll with that.
And so
Well,
when he
that's really
appears, some people would be fooled. It's like, oh, it's Santa, because he's got the same kind of outfit, except it's just like blood-stained furs.
It makes sense. Yeah, well, that's a neat addition. Because I did kind of wonder why his mouth was sort of like rigor mortis kind of stuck. But that makes a lot of sense. I love the fact that they all wore masks, and I love groups of people in movies, groups of people with costumes with masks, in some form or fashion. In this case, hidden in shadow, sinister. You don't know who they are. Like I loved it. I love the scene where you first get a glimpse of the elves and they're like darting back and forth between the snowmen, which for all you Calvin and Hobbes fans out there, the snowmen appearing was a lot like the attack of the deranged mutant killer monster snow goons, which I thought was really cool.
Actually, I didn't think of that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that happens where the snowmen sort of replicate themselves and surround the house in the story arc of Calvin and Hobbes. But I thought that was really kind of neat. I doubt that was intentional, and if it was, then that was pretty clever.
That very well may have been intentional, because there were a lot of, like, they talked repeatedly about how they'd grown up in the 80s and they tried to put like all kinds of like things that they remembered, like about like the holidays from the 80s in there, and that's kind of the time frame for Calvin and Hobbes, isn't it?
Yeah, 85 to 95. So I think that
could have been intentional.
I think that particular story arc was like, I think it was like 89 to 90 is when that particular one happened. So it would have been in the range.
So, real quick, I know that Dave had something he was trying to say, but
Oh yeah, I remember. I'll get to him when you finish whatever you're gonna say.
Oh, I was just trying to point out that he's been trying to grab out at it.
Oh, yeah. So Dave brought up that there was kind of they sort of set up the two different parts of the family as like having different like political affiliations, and that was kind of just to sort of drive the typical conflict people usually have with their families at Christmas.
Well, when they were
Yeah, there was a thing where they said, only liberals do this or something.
It was
why the rich people get the free stuff or whatever.
Democrats. That's pretty funny.
Which to me, the only real reason why it was there, at least story-wise, besides the setting, to me the only real story reason why it's there is to give them firearms.
That's my wife's gun.
Basically.
Dave, do you contest that point? That pretty much.
Your point.
Oh well, my point about it was that
grumbling.
Sitting there, and they were like, "Why do all the stuff?" And then the wife goes in, and she's like, "I don't know, maybe because they're Democrats."
Why do rich people always get free shit? Democrats. What? No, that's opposite. That's not how it works.
I just laughed at that point, even though I know I just political statement in the film when it was Christmas, Krampus.
Yeah, where's my free shit?
So.
Oh, another kind of random stupid thing. Anybody notice they were playing Dead Space on that tablet? Like, how the hell did they pull that off?
Well, they put it in the credits at the end with Rick and Morty.
Actually,
yeah.
I saw that too.
Tablet.
You also gotta love the fact that they mention A Charlie Brown Christmas by name, and yet the thing that they're watching is some obvious cheap knockoff of it, because they obviously couldn't get the rights to it. But I just found that funny.
I forgot about that. Actually, there were some. So there were a lot of things that alluded to this taking place in the same universe as Trick or Treat. Like, there's a deleted scene where Max comes down from his room after they've all huddled together in the living room. He's like, "I still got some Halloween candy," and then he like opens the box, and Sam's lollipop is like clearly like right on top, along with the other candy for Halloween. And they acknowledge that in the commentary too. It's like, you know, it's cool that we had this like, take place in the same universe, and then somebody just made the joke. It's like, yeah, Sam and Krampus get together for drinks.
Well, it's a little bit like in Meet the Feebles that you can see an alien from Brain Dead, or from Bad Taste. You can see an alien from Bad Taste in the crowd at one point. You know, because those are both Peter Jackson films.
Oh, nice. Let's see. Oh, that was another joke too. I'm just like crossing off things on my list here. That was another joke from the commentary too. They were like, you know, it's great that, you know, Krampus has suddenly got all this merchandise, and then they like talked for like a minute or two, and they were like, you know, we're gonna get like the worst angry nerd review. They started trying to sell me stuff, and it worked because I went out and bought all these things. Apparently they do sell Krampus bells for the way to the workshop. Let's see. So who knows a whole lot about like the real mythology? I mean, we've kind of touched on it here and there, but does anybody just have like a quick, concise?
I have a little snippet, a little factoid. Today actually is Krampus Day. If you go back to the pre-Germanic paganism, it's like Norse, more kind of Norse mythology. The Krampen meaning claw, it's Claw Day, so it's actually Krampus Day today.
Yep, today is the day
Really?
in Germany that they connect through Christ or Krampus, whoever would come for the bad children.
Yeah.
I asked my professor about Krampus last year. When I first saw, when I'd kind of first seen this, and she said that there isn't really a name for it, but everybody just remembers it as, you know, this is the night Krampus comes. And I had hoped to get a little bit more info from her, but I couldn't get a hold of her in time, which was a bit disappointing.
Well, it was nice knowing you all on that note.
Yeah. Actually, I've noticed that almost all of the European countries have a different Krampus style. I mean, I remember learning about Père Fouettard, and actually,
your stuff was good for last time.
From
I feel bad now.
what was it? From French mythology, and then of course there's another one in Norse mythology. It doesn't take the children, but beats the crap out of them. If they're
What is that sound? The sound of me accidentally ignoring Celeste. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, I feel bad now.
There's plenty of people here. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to share like the Gerlinda story on it. Let's see. What else do we have here?
I actually have some stuff to say about the tradition.
Bring it on.
Oh.
Yeah, after this, I would highly, highly recommend you guys look up the Krampus celebrations. Or I don't know if it's a celebration.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Like the Krampus figure, like the overall shape with the horns and the hunchback and stuff. They have like a bunch of people dress up like that in like these massive hunchback ghillie suits and shuffle through towns with these big bells and stuff, and it's fantastic and terrifying to watch.
I saw a Krampus parade once. It was really cool.
Oh,
it's
amazing.
They have those in Europe a lot, and apparently it's like a big thing in, I think, Germany and other countries where that was prevalent. And I remember seeing footage of the parades before the movie came out, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. Scary, but cool at the same time. And I felt like we needed to have that come over here to America.
I'm pretty sure it's already here. I could have swore I saw pictures on Instagram of people doing it, like in New York or something.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, like on a massive scale, though.
Well, everything cool happens in New York or California, but
I know I'd do it.
Anyways, the other thing is I actually, not a personal story, but Dustin, you remember Kari, right?
It's hard to forget someone who like there was one time we played Trans-Siberian Orchestra around the beginning of November, and she came and like beat down our door and said, "No Christmas music. It's not Thanksgiving yet."
Okay.
That's who this person is.
Her dad, who was, I believe, a Lutheran pastor, was a student in Germany at one point, and because he was the foreign student on Krampus Day, they had the, and not a quote, but a close paraphrase, a black midget dressed as Krampus came out and started beating his butt with a stick.
Amazing.
I know. I'm just trying to imagine like this German black midget dressed up in a Krampus suit. You know, that just kind of made my day.
Wow.
Well, here's something interesting that I do. One of the things I feel like the legend of the Krampus, I feel like it fills a void in our American Santa Claus tradition, in the sense that, well, the whole idea of Santa Claus kind of emerges as a combination of Saint Nicholas, the real Christian saint, and legends of kind of Celtic, Germanic legends that then get kind of merged into one thing. So in other words, you've got a lot of Christian ideals that get merged into kind of traditional stories, and just to kind of form a hybrid. But you have the idea of the good are rewarded, but then in our tradition we don't have as much of the evil get punished, and that's where Krampus comes in. And there's even a reference of the Krampus as the Christmas devil, and they make that very explicit in the film with him arising from the underworld, as they call it, or hell, or wherever, however you want to say it. But it does, when you add Krampus into the equation, it creates a much more kind of complete system in which you have the good being rewarded and the evil being punished, as opposed to just the good being rewarded and that's kind of it, in this sort of very sanitized, hallmarky kind of way that we have here in America. So I do find the analogs there very interesting, and it just speaks to the larger fusion of Christian ideas being and rituals and stuff being performed and thought about at the same time as traditionally pagan holidays and harvest festivals and things like that, and then you merge them together and you get Christmas.
That makes me think of another thing they mentioned in the commentary. Was they didn't point out where it was, but they said that they had used some like subliminal occult imagery in like random places, and so that kind of ties a little bit into like what you were saying. And the thing that's also on my mind is it's a popular, more of a common rather than popular like conspiracy theory thing. It's like you can't spell Santa without Satan. It's like, okay.
So apparently God
is
is
the thing I've heard.
According to that logic.
Well, if you go back,
what's interesting is
logic.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said you're putting it in terms of logic when when you get that it's.
Well, I was just saying, if you go back in time, it's especially when it comes to religion is concerned. A religion is all about punishment with the hope of almost a lifetime of punishment with the hope of reward at the end. And it's only in recent times that you look at possibly more enjoyment out of the present life. So these types of things, they're not new. They're just concepts that are being brought back. I mean,
right, they're very deeply rooted in tradition.
I mean, shoot, look at Santa's sleigh. There's another example of something ancient, of saying Santa is actually really the Antichrist. Which still is one of my favorites.
It is just funny though. Then but then you think about Saint Nicholas, who was a Christian saint who gave gifts to children and was very generous and all the traits that you associate with Santa Claus. So there is a real world parallel there. So I mean, in a sense, you could say, well, Santa was a real person in a sense,
Indeed.
Sinter is the many different folklore that are aligned with I just watched a short The Sandman, and apparently the legend of the Sandman is he comes while a child is whether sleeping or not. If he's been good, he gives you good dreams, and if you're bad, he gives you nightmares. And there are similar
Similar tropes
folklore
in mythology.
that I think.
Oh, and not to mention the various like I think it was Celeste was saying that they had a different name for the kind of the punishing creature, but not to mention the various names and versions of Santa that there are around the world. You know, we have Santa Claus. In Britain, there's Father Christmas. Spain, I think, has their own version, and then like Sinterklaas
Like
and
Papa Noel and
yeah, exactly.
Papa
and they're very similar, but they're very different. And then I think there's another one where there's like a mother troll that has children, and it's so the bottom line is it's the same root idea being expressed in a variety of ways that all speak to the various cultures. And on a broader sense, you see that with religious ideas, similar root concepts that get expressed in very different ways across the cultures.
yeah, exactly. And well, it's not exactly an intellectual point, but I really liked what they did. They did this on South Park. They had theirs be Slash, like the guitar guy, and he was just called Wunterslausch. So there's an episode where their kids were writing letters to Wunterslausch. And then at the end, like, there's like a mysterious pile of presents. It's like, where'd they come from? I don't know. And then they look in the corner, and there's like Slash's hat on top of a guitar. And then there's like European singing. Like,
I mean, he does have a
Slash,
magic hat. So.
Well, yeah.
I mean, very first thing they did with South Park, the very first short was
it was the Christmas thing, yeah.
Santa Claus.
It was Jesus versus Frosty, and that was the original, and then there was Jesus versus Santa, which was the one that became a very early viral video, and that helped get the pilot of South Park made, and then finally the show made.
Viral video on VHS tapes.
Yeah,
the oldest of old school.
Well, on VHS tapes, but I think they were also able to. Yeah, they were able to send it in the form of an e-Christmas card, I think. So it was like really, really early.
It was a Christmas card, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like really early video sharing, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
sure
it was.
Right.
Well, but it's the idea of not to get too far afield, but like the point that they made in Jesus versus Santa was the idea that Santa is keeping the spirit of Jesus's birth in people's minds by bringing happiness and joy. And then he says, and Jesus, if it weren't for, and Santa, you have to realize that if it weren't for Jesus, then this day wouldn't even exist. So as much as people like to separate the two these days, the concepts are not dissimilar to each other, nor are they necessarily mutually exclusive in a way, just because they do often go hand in hand, and for good reason, because they come from a lot of the same root sources, conceptually and historically.
Yeah.
This got much more intellectual than I had initially anticipated. I like it.
Yeah.
I wish there was that connection to the man who turned children into rats for staying past their bedtime and Nutcracker fantasy.
Speaking of rats and turning things into monsters, so what do you guys think of the creature designs? Like, my big takeaway was they really like weird mouths over at Weta.
They were scary. I loved how scary the creatures were in this. Like
that fucking teddy bear. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Teddy bear, the owl doll thing. It's
supposed to be a cherub.
Yeah, that.
Red Raven. What did you think of the creatures?
She's gone.
Poof.
They scared her away.
I think that
I
the
think she was on a
doll
phone.
owl,
It finally
the
like
doll
honked
owl
out.
thing like picked her up. I
She was
did
eaten by
also,
the clown.
You got the clown. Holy crap!
Actually,
That
that
was a
scene where he
scary-
opens the bag and you see all the toys like coming out after the old woman in that scene.
Bro, me. Oof.
Yeah, I was. Well, they clearly loved Gremlins, but I have to say they ratcheted up many times over in terms of the scares with the creatures.
Did you know that in their original concepts for that clown, you were supposed to be able to see the kids like writhing in its belly?
Ooh.
It was supposed to be like semi-translucent, and you could like see like the shapes of like the kids like screaming for help inside.
That's cool.
Because none of it was really designed to kill them. It was designed to capture them so that they could eventually then toss them into hell.
The pit of hell. Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny. Although, well, the robot did try to stab that guy like to death. So I'm wondering.
And it said she had fun, but she had to go.
Oh, well, it was great having you on.
The only thing I'd say is like the gingerbread men were very kind of cute and adorable in and of themselves and amusing in their own right. I did sort of feel like they stuck out next to the other creatures, which were terrifying, but the gingerbread men were actually quite charming and adorable.
They were consciously on trying to have them be more of like a comedic element rather than like a pure like horror element. Like they said that if they had changed the music, like it would have played completely differently with the gingerbread men. Like that was intentional. Like especially with I like the thing with the gingerbread men when like it first drops down like on that chain. It's like nobody's gonna be stupid enough to like go over. Oh god damn it, he's doing it.
Yeah.
Augustus Gloop is stupid enough.
They called him
And then he
Augustus
bites
Gloop.
it.
They called him Augustus Gloop in the commentary. It's like yeah,
That's
we've got like a Willy Wonka thing here.
That's basically what he was. He didn't say anything, and he was just like
Just like that blank stare. Or Dad does
Just,
not wish we
walks
were
up and
girls.
bites it.
At least he didn't.
Speaking of which, one interesting thing I just thought about was the fact that the two daughters of Todd Packer from The Office, I can never remember the actual person's name, but you know that the two daughters, they had unisexual names, and they were essentially raised like boys, even though they were girls.
Yeah,
Yep.
there was a point where they said they're like, our dad doesn't wish we were boys.
And
That
He
was
very
in the
obviously
letter.
does. Yeah,
That
they
was in
were
the letter to Santa.
bad people. Like, so it was. I don't know. Like they were exceptionally mean. Like that bothered me.
Well,
Katie and Celeste, how would you rank the parenting in this film?
Oh gosh, horrible parenting.
How many stars do you give these parents?
They tried. So I'm going to actually say they were okay. They would clearly love their kids, but they were misguided.
I always get kind of weirded out by the parent-child scenarios where like the kid is clearly being like molded in the image of the father. Like this is what I want my kids to be. Only when it's funny, like in Talladega Nights or whatever, where his kids are jerks. You know what I'm talking about? Like I feel like this was kind of like that with these girls, but where he was trying to make them, very boyish and masculine, and I don't know, it just that never sits right with me, probably because I have issues about that for myself.
Actually,
so
though,
I dislike that.
I was gonna say, actually, though, when I look at it, and it took multiple viewings because the first time I saw this, they're all terrible. But when I watched it, the more I've watched it, the more I think to myself that they're actually. It felt like not only was there like a lot of love and togetherness with this family, especially the main one that came about first. You even see the vestiges of that. The sister wasn't just dismissive of her brother; she actually was working with him, saying, "Don't, we don't want to get in trouble with this." Trying to actually do these things, the
What
family
is that
honestly,
sound?
it's just that aggravating thing with
Did someone fall asleep?
Is someone snoring?
It so sounds like someone is snoring.
not me. You might be coming from here.
Is that everyone? Life check. Make noise.
Hello.
It's me. I'm totally sleeping now.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. All right. The noise momentarily stopped.
Are you?
God damn
No,
it!
it's
Who is
still
that?
going.
Give a nosebleed there.
Stop eating the mic, you bastard!
This is why I turn my mic off when I don't talk.
Oh shit! Was it him?
Ready. So, does
It
anyone
was his
else
wife,
have anything else
Dustin,
to say?
sleeping.
Okay. Well, let's see. So we've got creature design.
I want to talk
So-
about the lighting really quick.
Okay.
Loved it.
Yeah, so it switches back and forth. It's kind of, I know it's not the lighting per se, but in the beginning it's kind of grainy, and that gets you into the Christmas mood. And then it switches to the more like old school, bright and glowing, kind of like they did right at the end of the horror. But during it, the lighting was so similar to Trick or Treat that like it actually reminded me of it, like where the lights were placed and the camera angles and stuff, which I really liked. It gave a very good vibe, but I absolutely adored the lighting, and that's something I usually don't pay attention to.
I pay attention to lighting all the time just because I'm as a director I'm very lighting conscious because it's one of my favorite things. I really love the lighting in this lighting and color usage in this film because there was good kind of bright schmaltzy colors and morning sun coming in certain spots. I loved it when things got really misty, but also when obviously the power goes off and there's candlelight and there's snow and there's a lot of chiaroscuro with when they're outside looking for their daughter and it just I don't know, the everything really I thought was very well lit, very moody, and it's like thank you for actually caring to establish mood in your lighting, to not just have everything be over bright or audiences are so used to things looking dark and quote unquote looking dark, and yet you can see everything almost perfectly fine. Here it's like, oh gee, you actually have dark parts of the frame and you have it's like you're actually caring about your lighting instead of saying, oh, it's dark, and guess what, you can see everything. I can't stand that, but
I
like
hate that.
yeah, but it's like, hey, this actually looks stylish. Thank you. You did your homework.
Yay! Filmmaking. So I've got a handful of kind of like making of things that they just like mentioned from. Honestly, one of the best commentaries I've listened to in a really long time. Like I had the Blu-ray, and it was really fun, like hearing them talk about this movie. So because of their emphasis on kids, they were really aiming for the PG-13. Like they wanted, again, just to have like a Gremlin style, like fun movie that kids could enjoy, like in the modern era, like they had with the real thing. And they commented that one of the things they had trouble with the MPAA was the scene where Aunt Dorothy like puts like the schnapps like in the hot chocolate and like lets the kid take a sip. Like they had more trouble with that than like the cherub like slicing people up or that goddamn clown. Like, and I thought that was really funny.
So just a side note, I like went and made like schnapps and hot chocolate immediately after that. It's like, I need this in my life.
Before I started, I went and bought like gingerbread man cookies because I knew I was gonna want them. And actually, that sort of tied into like why they had the rating. It's like, so what are we gonna do? For like the MPAA doesn't like kids in danger, so you had to be kind of like careful about it. And I don't know exactly what prompted it, but it's like, I mean, we didn't want it to be like the other movies where I mean, most horror movies are about killing like dumb teenagers, and then somebody else in the commentary was like, "Yeah, fuck teenagers."
I would have loved to see like an uncut version of this, although it sounds like they were very conscious of it from the get-go, but like there's a part of me that wants to see like a really intense hardcore version of this. But that's just my sick, demented mind.
That would honestly be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, just because, like, if you, again, this is, I don't want to rewrite the movie because I really liked what I saw, but I could see a version of this in which you had scary monsters and not a lot of comic relief and, oh, like a really gory, intense, scenes. And I mean, heck, you could even make the Krampus the main monster and you wouldn't even need any other monsters. But I don't know. I could see a version of that in which that happened with the same kind of production value and everything. That's not the movie they made, and what they made was really good. I could just definitely see that it had the makings for what could have been a really, really intense film in which, like, children get decapitated and things like that. I mean, the new version of it had Georgie's arm getting ripped off in the opening scene. So, I mean, if they can do that and have it be this hugely, high grossing movie, not just horror movie, but just movie in general, then, they might have been able to open up the canvas a bit. But at the same time, that's not what they were going for. And with the PG-13, they broadened their audience a bit more. So I can definitely understand the appeal there. But again, there's a part of me that wanted to does still want to see like a really gruesome, really
like Uber version of this.
Well, like a no holds barred kind of Krampus movie, and
Take it that step further.
and one in which the Krampus is not evil Santa, and one in which it is like the full on hairy monster
Like,
that I
even-
see. Yeah, the one that I
Although-
see in my head.
You can always
everyone tweet Mike Dougherty.
actually you
Go
can
ahead.
always watch the Krampus the Christmas Devil movies. Those are the ones that have the horned Santa.
Yeah, I would like to see those just for comparison and just to see what the indie crowd does to the same basic premise. That's a really good strategy whenever you see like a mainstream studio do an idea and then you see what either the asylum is going to do with it, or if it's based on or if it's like based on the public domain, you see like what other indie filmmakers have done or will do with it, just for the sake of comparison and just to especially if it's something mythological, just to see what other insights there are. Because like mainstream Hollywood is going to have one take on it, and then you might have another take on it that could be a lot edgier or could be infinitely worse, or who knows what. But that's why that's important, just for the sake of who is able to get what out of this idea and express it in their own special way. Even if it's a knockoff, like there was the Asylum film Avengers Grimm, which was based on Grimm's fairy tales characters. Like, it surprisingly, even though the title is Avengers Grimm, it doesn't rip off Age of Ultron as much as I was expecting, and it did some pretty interesting things for a Asylum movie. But again, it's like you have these public domain characters and people with a lot of imagination and not a lot of budget, and yet they can make something kind of interesting out of it. So that's why it's important to compare those things.
Sorry. I was just wanted to put in one movie thing that I thought was also that's forgotten, is A Christmas Horror Story. To me, that was my favorite rendition of Krampus because of the twist at the end. Much better in quality than a lot of the rest. Actually, Mother Krampus was very good in the quality as well, but still none of them quite as good a quality as this. And then I'm going to leave back to you.
Mother Krampus?
I just had another like random ass fact. The snow was actually diaper filling, but they had just like shredded it.
Huh.
And they made the comment that like walking through it, because this was almost all this was done on a soundstage, and they made the comment that walking through it was kind of like going through quicksand, and it was possible to like fall through it or like fall down in it, and at some point it became like a game, like whoever falls through like the lair like on the stage like has to buy everybody like a round of beer, and they said that the most beer calls in one day was like 7, and I just thought that was kind of funny. So
long as no one used them first. So long as nobody used the diapers first.
Well, no. They just got it. They just got it like from the factory or whatever. Let's see. So, well, as we start to kind of wrap it up here, anybody have any? So, what were people's like favorite like moments? I mean, I know we've kind of sprinkled them about here and there, but you know, what really stuck out in your minds? Like, for me, I have like a couple. I mean, I have that animated segment where Omi talks about her backstory. Like, that was really cool, and like, it was a really unique break for a flashback. Like, I felt that was just really awesome all around. One of the things that was supposed to be during World War I. That she was referring to, so it kind of plays around with time a lot.
I love that whole animated segment. It looked almost like Leica did that, which I don't think they did, but it looked very similar.
It really did. Like, it looked almost stop motion-y. I think it was CGI. They didn't talk about it very much, which was kind of strange.
My favorite
favorite
moment in the film.
Yep. Oh, were you gonna go or?
Yeah, I can go for a moment. My favorite moment in the film was when the dog actually ate the gingerbread man.
I liked that one the best too.
Pretty cool.
That was my favorite as well.
Everybody loved that, huh?
Actually, the opening scene
like,
with the Black Friday like crowd, that to me was the best way to open this movie, because it kind of shows the evil and greed of the world and the corruption that the holiday had come around.
Nailed it. That's exactly what they're going for. They also pointed out too that because it was supposed to be taking place in America, but they were filming in New Zealand, they said they had a lot of trouble getting like a diverse crowd. Like they basically got every like ethnic actor they could find in New Zealand for that. So it was kind of interesting that it's like you don't really think about these sorts of things like in different places.
Yeah, you can only have so many Anglo New Zealanders and people of Maori descent and whoever else you can scrap up.
So, Katie, did you have one or?
I don't know that I had a favorite part. I guess I enjoyed the twist at the end where they're in the snow globe. I don't know. There's something about snow globes that were always kind of creepy to me, even before I saw this movie. So the fact that that's where they end up, I kind of like that. It's sort of it's one of the only things about Christmas that I think is just a little bit creepy. So yeah, I guess I like that best.
Did anybody not get to share theirs yet?
I don't think Celeste did.
I did. I actually agreed with David.
Oh, okay.
That's why I got lost, like, because 4 or 5 people were like, "Oh, I love that too," and it's like, "Oh, how do we keep track of everyone?" I had kind of another one, like when the clown creature like falls from the ceiling, and like they're trying to like shoot it, and they hear the elves outside, and like the clown like looks to the window, and the clown just kind of like yippee,
starts
like
clapping.
claps, and I was like, "Oh, that's so messed up. I love that." So that was one of mine. And then of course, Aunt Dorothy like shoots like several monsters, pulled off in chains. "I'll see you in hell."
She ended up being much more self-aware than I expected for that character.
Like she was surprising. Like she was awful, but like she kind of accepted it.
She knew.
Yeah, I liked her because she was so awful, and she kind of reminded me of a character that Kathy Bates might play.
Yeah.
And I love Kathy Bates.
I got to like her towards the end. That was the weird thing. I didn't want to like her, but like I say, she came across as actually much more likable than you would have thought as the time ended up with her.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we've done everything that we probably can. So let's start wrapping it up. So why don't we all sign off with the traditional way we do this? Like, tell everybody who you are and what you do. We'll just go right down the line again, starting with A. So, all right, Andrew, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. I have recently transitioned from wreath making factory in this dude's garage. We actually pumped out quite a few to substitute teaching right now.
Hooray!
Yay, jobs. That's
Must
about
be
it.
nice. All right,
next?
Dane.
I am Dane Kyle, independent writer, director, producer out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And you can connect with me on my YouTube channel, The Dane Kyle, Keil. Connect with me on Facebook, Twitter. You can see my work, talk to me. I did a screening of a short film that I made tonight, and I think it went pretty well. A lot of the cast and crew weren't able to be there, and the room was fairly silent afterward. But it was good that we got to do a little victory lap, and my leading lady did her behind-the-scenes interview, which was good. But yeah, very busy. 2018 is going to be packed with projects, so stay tuned.
Awesome. Dave, you are next. Dave?
Sure. My name is David Streggy. I run. My name is David Streggy. I run Movies Galore of Milwaukee. I run this podcast for the most part. Thank you, Dustin, for taking a gander at leading the discussion tonight. And I have a few projects as well that I've been working on. Some with Dane, some with a filmmaker named Brad Twigg with Wrestle Massacre coming up in 2018. So definitely check the page out to all you listeners and check the YouTube channel out. Tonight's broadcast was about Krampus, so
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay,
ahead,
I'm Katie Cadaver from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I actually have a cold, so I probably sound kind of nasally.
That's okay.
So I apologize. But I am the makeup artist for horror punk band Rat Bat Spider. You can find them on Facebook, Bandcamp, Twitter, all over the place, Instagram. I also am a dead girl with Dead Girls Dark Coffin Classics, and you can find them at vimeo.com/ddcc and also on Facebook. And I also just launched a new burlesque production team called Grindhouse Tees, and we have a show coming up in January. Thank you. We have a show coming up this January. It's going to be called Death Blizzard, and it's a night of heavy metal and burlesque. So we've got 2 heavy metal bands playing, Primal Enemy and H1Z1, and then some live burlesque as well. So that's coming up January 20th at Frank's Power Plant.
Sweet. So everybody go check out Katie's pages.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm all over
event.
Facebook too.
All right, Michelle, you're next.
Hi there, everybody. Michelle Yeager. You can find me on Facebook. I'm an actress, model, writer, promoter. I'll say Yeager Entertainment. You can search that. Yeagerbomb Yeager or Michelle Yeager. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, pretty much all over everywhere.
Cool. Septum Sins?
Yes, I'm Septum Sin. I have a blog. actually on YouTube called Septum Sin versus the World. We cover movies. We also do a lot of segments for new releases. That's what we seem to rake in most of the people that want to see the site. Also, we did do a recent review. We currently have Santa Claus over doing reviews for us for the week. And he did the review of Mother Krampus. And for those wanting to see some reviews of all the other Krampus movies, my original blog on Blogspot, which was Septum Sin Against the World, has the reviews of basically every Krampus movie except for Mother Krampus out on that site.
Awesome.
Yeah, go check his page out. All right, and Celeste.
All right, my name is Celeste. I am the co-host on a horror host show, Dedgar's Dark Coffin Classics, with host Dedgar Winter. You can find me on Facebook at Celeste Parker or my page, Sorceress Celeste. Or on Instagram as Sorceress Celeste, or you can look up Dedgar's Dark Coffin Classics. So, along with Katie, I am one of Dedgar's Dead Girls.
And so was Red Raven, right?
Yes, she was. She had to leave, but she is also one of the Dead Girls, and she does promotion and band booking and promotion in the Milwaukee, Kenosha, Racine area. And if you would like to check out our stuff, you can go to vimeo.com/ddcc.
So, well, I'm gonna finish this off here. So, well, I'm Dustin. I live in Milwaukee and collect horror things. I have an Instagram, DHR Hunter. So
use hashtags.
Yeah, I'm starting to use hashtags now after you reminded me. So it's basically just Dustin Horror Hunter, where I just show off all the incredible things that I find around town and blow my money on. And so, well, with that, I think we will return you to whatever it was you were doing. So thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. You can also find us on, what is that podcast site again, Dave?
You can find us now on Podcast Garden / Movies Galore Milwaukee or Inside Movies Galore. I've got to figure that out yet. But we definitely have a cool intro coming out for each of these episodes. So stay tuned for when we can get them out to the public. So thank you for listening. And
Podcast Garden.
Podcast Garden. So, folks, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. So, what movie do we want to do next week, guys?
Might I suggest A Christmas Horror Story? I think that's also a Krampus movie.
And it has William Shatner in it.
It's a win.
My copy of Silent Night, Deadly Night from Shout should be showing up soon.
Yep. That one and Black Christmas are both like big ones. Gosh. Though I have been very disappointed when I finally got to watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 4 and 5. Ugh.
With what?
I was hoping to do a horror film from Wisconsin that has something to do with Christmas, possibly Dismembering Christmas.
Dismembering Christmas?
The indie.
Dismembering Christmas? What?
Horror and Dismembering Christmas. That I'm hoping to do in 2 weeks. So
what do we do next week? 2 weeks.
Next week I was planning on doing a Christmas horror story.
Well, awesome pick though. Great film.
I love it. But in any case, say goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
You know what he meant. Bye.